In the early hours of the morning, explosions echoed across Caracas. Residents woke to the sound of helicopters, distant blasts, and emergency sirens. Power outages were reported in parts of the city. Information was scarce, and confusion spread quickly. Within hours, the President of the United States stood before cameras in Florida. He announced that the United States had carried out a large-scale military operation in Venezuela, and that Venezuela's president was no longer in the country. According to U.S. officials, Nicolas Maduro had been captured and flown out of Venezuela with his wife, Celia Flores. Washington said it would now oversee Venezuela until a transition of power could be achieved. For Venezuela, and for the world, it was a moment without precedent. Nicolas Maduro rose to power in 2013 following the death of Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez. Before entering national politics, Maduro worked as a bus driver in Caracas and later became active in labor unions. He joined Chavez's political movement in the 1990s and steadily rose through the ranks of Venezuela's socialist political system. Under Chavez, Maduro served as Speaker of the National Assembly, Foreign Minister, and later Vice President. As Foreign Minister, he became the public face of Venezuela's alliances with countries such as Cuba, China, and Russia. When Chavez died, Maduro narrowly won the presidential election that followed. The result was contested by opposition leaders, but he was sworn in as president, presenting himself as the guardian of Chavez's Bolivarian revolution. During Maduro's presidency, Venezuela entered one of the worst economic crises in its history. Hyperinflation erased wages and savings. Food and medicine shortages became widespread. Public services deteriorated. Millions of Venezuelans fled the country, creating one of the largest migration crises in the world. At the same time, opposition groups and international observers reported that democratic institutions weakened. The opposition-controlled National Assembly was sidelined, while authority increasingly shifted to courts, electoral bodies, and security forces aligned with the executive. Elections held under Maduro were repeatedly disputed. International observers raised concerns about transparency, voter access, and the absence of verifiable results. The Venezuelan government rejected allegations of fraud, saying elections were conducted legally. Human rights organizations documented a rise in repression. Reports from the United Nations and other international bodies described patterns of arbitrary detention, torture, and intimidation of political opponents. The government denied systematic abuses, calling security operations lawful responses to unrest. For many Venezuelans, trust in the political system collapsed. Relations between Washington and Caracas deteriorated sharply. The United States imposed sweeping sanctions targeting Venezuela's oil industry, financial system, and senior officials. U.S. officials said the goal was to pressure Maduro into allowing democratic elections. In 2020, U.S. prosecutors unsealed indictments accusing Maduro and senior Venezuelan officials of serious crimes, including narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine trafficking, and weapons offenses. U.S. authorities alleged that senior figures within the Venezuelan state protected drug trafficking networks using Venezuelan territory as a transit route. Maduro denied all allegations, calling them politically motivated attempts at regime change. Despite the indictments, Maduro remained in power, protected by state security forces and the military. The standoff dragged on for years. Just days before the operation, Maduro publicly signaled openness to dialogue with Washington. In public statements, he said Venezuela was prepared to cooperate on drug enforcement and discuss oil production and foreign investment, including potential involvement by U.S. energy companies operating under limited licenses. The remarks marked a notable shift in tone after years of frozen relations. However, no formal talks were announced. U.S. officials did not publicly respond and later said that plans to apprehend Maduro had already been finalized well before his remarks were made. What might have been the beginning of negotiations instead became the final moment before escalation. According to U.S. military leaders, the mission, known as Operation Absolute Resolve, had been planned for several weeks, with final approval granted before Christmas. Late at night, U.S. forces launched a coordinated air, land, and sea operation. The operation involved a large-scale deployment. U.S. officials later confirmed that more than 150 aircraft launched from 20 different bases across the Western Hemisphere. Shortly after midnight, helicopters touched down in Caracas. U.S. officials said a special military team entered Maduro's residence inside the Fuerte Tiuna military complex, Venezuela's largest military installation. According to official accounts, helicopters encountered resistance during the mission and returned fire. One aircraft was reportedly struck but remained operational. Some U.S. personnel were injured, but no American service members were killed. Venezuelan officials reported at least 80 fatalities, including 32 Cuban military personnel, while a senior Venezuelan official told U.S. media that more than 40 people were killed in the attacks. These figures have not been independently verified. Maduro and his wife were secured, removed from Venezuelan territory, and transported to a U.S. aircraft carrier within hours. Venezuelan authorities dispute the U.S. account, and no independent verification of operational details has been released. What is not disputed is the outcome. Venezuela's president was gone. As dawn broke, Caracas awoke to the aftermath. Residents reported explosions and fires near military installations. Helicopters flew low over the city. International media described the strikes as the largest U.S. military intervention in the region in decades. Venezuelan officials reported significant casualties, including foreign military personnel stationed in the country, though exact figures remain disputed and unverified. The Venezuelan government condemned the operation as an illegal kidnapping and a violation of national sovereignty. The United States described it as a lawful arrest carried out under criminal law. With Maduro removed, Venezuela entered a period of uncertainty. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez was named acting president by remaining state institutions. Opposition groups and several foreign governments questioned the legitimacy of the transition. President Donald Trump said the United States would oversee Venezuela until a safe and orderly transition could be achieved. How that oversight would function, and for how long, remains unclear. Nicolas Maduro is now in U.S. custody, awaiting trial in New York. Venezuela is without its longtime leader. The region faces new uncertainty. What began as years of sanctions, indictments, and diplomatic pressure ended with a president being taken from his own country. Whether this moment will be remembered as justice, intervention, or overreach remains unresolved. But one thing is clear: Venezuela entered a new chapter overnight, and its consequences are still unfolding.